Every Night is Game Night, episode 60. Games beyond the hotness and the ethics of getting free stuff for review. Yo, my peoples, what's up? This is Jason, and this is Every Night is Game Night. So if you listen to our episode 58, you know that we were lucky enough to be joined by Anthony and Francis from Antlab Games. Well, they're back. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
All right. They have agreed to stick.
We're back.
Oh, yes, you are back. That is correct. We couldn't get rid of you.
No, you gotta get rid of us that easy.
That's right. So we did have an episode between this. You will have heard Ryan Lockett on episode 59. And also they've agreed to stick on because Anthony, unfortunately, has a little bit is going to hit a little bit of a busy stretch. So you are going to hear from me a little bit more often, and I'm going to call upon some guest hosts for the next couple of episodes so that we can get through and get Anthony back and talking about his heavy game. So that'd be great. So today we figured that we're going to go in a little bit of a different direction. We're going to give you games because that's what we do. People love to hear about games, and we're going to go a little bit beyond the hotness, as I like to call it. Games that we like, but that don't get a lot of press, especially now. So we're going to run through some of those, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion afterwards, taking advantage of the fact that I have a massive YouTube star on the other line.
Oh, who is that?
Wow. Who's that guy?
Francis, obviously.
Oh, yes. Indeed.
You're just riding coattails there, sir.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Cool. All right. So first, we give the people what they want. We feed the beast. We are going to talk about some games that we love. We're not going to talk about games that we're like critical of. These are games that you should take the time out, go under the hotness, go, don't just listen to the top 10 list or whatever it is. Go out and find these games. We enjoy them for all different reasons. So I'm going to follow the old rule of ladies first, and I'm going to ask Francis to talk about Farspace Foundry.
All right, cool. So Farspace Foundry it's a game that we picked up, I think just our game store. Looked really cool. It's a pick up and delivery game, designed by Dan Manfredini. And this game actually came out, I think, to like 2015. Fell completely under the radar. I even to this day, I don't think I saw too many like reviews on it or anything like that. So I don't know what happened with it, but it's one of my favorite games to play with two of us together and even solo. So basically in this game, what we're doing is you're operating in two phases, and it's, like I said, a pickup and delivery game where for the first phase, which goes very, very quickly, maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, you're acquiring resources. And then during the second phase of the game, you're using those resources to build things that are going to gain you points at the end of the game. Basically, plays, for one player, it's going to play about 30 minutes, maybe 25, 30 minutes or so. And, 20 minutes per player or so, if you're playing with other people, but very, very fast, very, very puzzly. And it's beautiful. They even have those little, like the credits are like these little metal tokens. They're so cool. Yeah,
they're awesome. So it's definitely one to pick up. I don't even know if this is one that you guys have played. I know, Anthony, you've played it, obviously, because we've played it together. Right.
Jason, was this even on your radar? Have you ever heard of this before?
I just heard a couple of, I think it was Tom and Rado mentioned it on a heavy games top 10 list, and they kind of had a back and forth about it. That's all I know. I'm like,
right.
If I'm on the fence about something, and those two guys who know a lot about games are going back and forth, I'm going to go in a different direction here.
It might have to do with the fact that Tom Vessel crushed this game.
Yeah, he didn't like it, and and that's fine. I think everybody, people are going to like different kinds of things. I think that if you were to pick this up, if you were to pick up this pickup and delivery game, you'd find that there's a lot of strategy here for a very quick game. So like I said, for your 30 minutes or so, you feel like you're doing a puzzle. And if you're not in the mindset to really optimize each move, and you're not prepared to like lose and then pick it up and play it again, then, maybe it wouldn't be an enjoyable experience for you. But its space, the illustrations are really, really good. It scales well, so you're playing essentially the exact same game solo that you are with other folks if people came over. And I would call it like mid-weight. I wouldn't even really call this super heavy, but a lot of strategy packed into this game. So if it's not on your radar, I think you can probably pick it up pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, and it even comes with an expansion.
Yeah, it does. It comes with the Ether Ore expansion.
Ether Ore
expansion.
So she's a sucker for puns. So
I am.
That usually wins her over time.
Throw wordplay into a game, and I'm right there. So, because what you're doing is you're kind of harvesting or mining ore off of these asteroids. So the Ether Ore expansion allows you to pick up different kinds of ore, which does different things. And without going too much into it, unless you guys have questions, definitely one to check out. And it's on our list. I think it's on our list for a video, but we've got so much else on our plate right now. It's just, it's kind of so.
No, I think that's what this episode's about, right? For those games that,
for those games that kind of fly
we're so busy
radar,
filming the hotness that you don't have time to go back and appreciate some of these older gems.
That is exactly definitely a good one. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So Far Space Foundry.
All right. So now, Anthony, we are going to go from the far reaches of space to whales.
Yeah, so
and water.
Let me take you back to the mid 1800s in a little town called New Bedford. So New Bedford is a game of historic whaling and town building. So this one actually I heard about for the first time at Gen Con 3 years ago. It was my very first Gen Con. And just walking out of the main hall, I saw this big poster for this game, New Bedford, coming to Kickstarter soon. So I got all excited for it. I'm like, wow, a whaling game? That's really cool. It just hooked me on theme. Not that I'm, pro whaling, but it's
really?
Just
people do that. Whaling.
Yeah, it just I don't know why it just struck a chord with me because I don't think I've seen too many board games about whaling. You know what I mean?
It's unique. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it just and the art on the cover was just really pretty. I was like, you know what, this seems like it could be a winner. So the game is published by Greater Than Games, so they launched their Kickstarter, and of course I backed it. Right. So got all the bells and whistles with it. And the one issue, I'm going to bring this up. So I did love the game. I'm not going to lie. I'll jump right to the chase. But the one issue I had was the printing, and this is always a challenge with Kickstarters, right? If anything gets misprinted, the quality control really isn't very high because they're trying to rush these things out to the backers so quickly that it came with so many misprinted tiles. So even our first playthrough of it.
Oh, I know. I capitalized on one of those.
She cheated so bad because of a misprint on this tile that she basically broke the game.
Yeah.
So I actually sat the game down, packed it up, and didn't play it for a year because they were getting ready to send out replacement tiles. So lo and behold, I got the replacement tiles, and I was like, you know what? I've been dying to play this game again, so I brought it out. So what is this game about, right? So we'll go into that. So New Bedford is exactly what it sounds like. It's a whaling game, but it's a worker placement, but it's a micro worker placement game. So you're only given 2 workers, and you have basically 2 actions to take every round. So you're placing a worker out on different actions on the main town board, and you have the option to collect resources, earn money, or build additional buildings from a building offer. And those buildings give you even more actions to take. So once you take your 2 actions, you then go into what they call the launch and the shipping and the whaling segment of the game, where there's this whole sea track that you'll launch your ships onto. Depending on how much food you put on the ship, that's how far down the track it goes, or how far out to sea you're able to send your ship. And then every round it'll come in 1 notch closer and then scoop up whales along the way, where they have this nice whale bag that you reach in. It has a mixture of 3 different species of whales, all worth different amounts of money. It also has these open sea tokens. So throughout the game, as you continue to whale, what ends up being left in the bag are just these open sea tokens to represent the lack of whales.
That's so sad.
It is, but it's so thematic, right?
It's like a bad bedtime story.
It's a nice thematic tie-in, right? I think it really works for the game. So and obviously from a multiplayer perspective, it plays really well. It's a competitive game. It's not cooperative. But what I find to be brilliant about this game and really enjoyable is that on the back of all these player boards, there are 4 or 5 different captains in their AIs, right? And each captain has sort of its unique personality, and it has a certain order of moves that they're going to do, if they're going to be more into buying buildings and expanding the town, if they're going to be better whalers, if they faster to get their ships out to sea. So you essentially decide which captain you want to play against. And not only do you have to decide against one, do you want to go against 2, or 3, however many you want.
Right,
so,
because in the multiplayer version of the game, you're actually both playing against one of these, or
in the two-player game, yes.
Two-player game, playing against one of these AI.
Exactly. So you will always have these AIs in the game, and they're made for the game, and they have their own cards, they have their own actions, they have a die that you roll, and it determines what actions they're going to actually go and take. You do have to do a little bit of deciding on what action they're going to take if there's sort of a tie between a few of them, but they do give you sort of a pecking order in the AI on the card that kind of guides you onto what they should do if they can achieve that move. But at the end of the game, you tally up your whales, and whoever has the most money, really, or victory points at the end of the game wins. So it's just a really, in my opinion, fast playing. It gives you a taste of the Euro. You can get immersed in the theme, and it's just a really, in my opinion, it's a really good experience in a small box in a pretty short amount of time, to be honest. So, and I'm surprised that not as many people, really talk about this game.
I agree with you. I think when you picked to do this one, it was like, why hasn't anybody talked about that?
Right.
It really is very brilliant.
Because whales, I think that's where we're at.
Maybe some people are turned off by the theme. I don't know, but
I'm not playing a game where I have to go hunt whales. But honestly, when we were playing this game, I was kind of like, can I just pretend we're taking them to the zoo or something?
We're picking up whales for SeaWorld, right? And we're bringing them in. So that's it. It's what happened back in the day. There was whaling, and it's not. It's just I sort of like that historic theme, and this one does it in a lighter way. I don't like historic theme when it's really too heavy and too dry.
Yeah.
But this one, it's light enough that I think it's fine.
Yeah, I found it to be a little bit Lords of Waterdeep, which that's a good kind of mid-weight. That's a word, right? Lord of Waterdeep?
Yeah. Lord of Waterdeep. That works.
I mean, it's a good middleweight introduction to the worker placement genre. So yeah, it's a solid one. I definitely agree with you guys.
Thank you.
I lied a little bit at the intro. Anthony is not here with us live. My Anthony from Every Night is Game Night. But we did record we wanted to get in on the fun a little bit, so we recorded a little bit on Port Royal, which is a game from Alexander Fist. I believe that was his first game, so I'm going to throw it to him right now.
All right, so I want to talk about Port Royal. This is a game that until very recently nobody had heard of, and it came out a little while ago, I think in 2015 in Europe, but Steve Jackson Games, of all people, picked up the license here in the US, and then they sat on it for 2 years. So they finally released this at Gen Con. You can finally get a copy, but you cannot get the expansion yet that allows you to play solo. So this is a expansion. I think it came out last year. I don't know the name in English. Here on the English rules, it says just one more contract. I don't think it quite translates to that. But basically, it adds contracts to the game. So real quick, how the game plays is you have a single deck of cards. On one side are various persons who work in this port, and on the other side is money. You will use the cards for both things. If it's money side up, it's just money. You never see what's on the other side. If it's person side up, it's part of your tableau or it's something you can buy. Every turn, the active player is going to flip over cards until they want to stop. It is a bit of a push your luck game, though, because these ships will come out. And if 2 ships of the same color come out, you lose completely. You lose your turn. You don't get to buy anything. You can't get any money. You just busted. You can mitigate that a little bit by building up swords in your tableau that will allow you to fight off the ships, but you really have to be careful. If you're too aggressive, you can lose a lot of turns. Now, if you are too aggressive and get a lot of good stuff out there, it can actually play out in your favor. If you get 4 different types of ships, you can buy 2 cards on your turn. On your turn, other people get to buy from the tableau as well. So once you've purchased your card, other people can buy, and they have to give you a little bit of money when they do that. So there are benefits to doing that, but it's a little bit dangerous. The goal of all this is to build a tableau in front of you of these different persons, and each of them has a special power. Some of them are active, some of them are innate, but they'll give you discounts and extra money, and almost all of them give you victory points. And the first person at 12 victory points wins. There is a variant as well in which you have to get at least one contract completed, or quest. I can't remember exactly what they're called. But there's these little cards that'll come out of the deck, and they go to the top, and they tell you have to discard a certain number of symbols from your tableau. They're worth a whole bunch more points, and they take a little bit more time to get because you have to collect those symbols, and it extends the game a little bit. If you don't do that, the game's like 10 or 15 minutes. If you do that, it's like 20, 25 minutes. Gives other people a little bit of time to catch up. So very simple game, quick and easy to teach, a good, decently, not heavy, but not super light filler. The expansion adds a few cool things. It adds some new ships, adds some new persons, 3 different types, and it adds the contracts. Now, the contracts can be played in either a competitive way or cooperative. In the competitive way, you're just competing to get the most out of the contracts. The first person to complete each of them gets a better bonus. The cooperative version, however, you're trying to complete them all before you run out of time. So that basically what you'll do is you'll build this deck, and it will time the game. So you'll have a certain number of rounds. It depends on the number of players. So you're going to have a larger deck for more players, a smaller one for fewer players. It also depends on which contracts come out. So you're going to pick a certain number to lay out in front of everybody. If you're playing by yourself, which is what we're talking about, there'll be 3 of them. And then they each have a seal on them. You look at the seals, you figure out how many cards need to be in this deck, and then that's your difficulty level. So it's basically the number of turns you get to do this. The contracts will show different characters or conditions, and you basically need to have those things in your tableau to claim the contract. So you're doing the game, you're going through, you're building your tableau, you're fighting off ships, you're recruiting people, and then you're trying to make sure you meet the requirements of these different contracts. Now, the actual amount of points that you're going to get has to do with the cards that are in your victory pile. So there's another little wonky mechanic that they threw in here, but it's not complicated at all. Basically, when you draw a tax increase, which is a card inside the deck, there's 4 of them, I think, that says if you have more than 12 cards in your hand, you lose half of them. So don't hoard money. You can take the option to remove 1 card from the time deck and set it aside as a victory point. The more of those you do, the harder the game gets and the higher your score, assuming you win. Now, if you don't do any of that, it's not too hard. I don't think I've lost with 0 to 1 points. I think I can always get like a point or 2. But the high score here is 8+. And so if you want to ramp up the difficulty, it gets decently hard, and then it just becomes a challenge. Can I actually beat this? It's a pretty cool way to test and play through the game. I mean, it's not particularly strategic, but that's not the kind of game it is anyways. And it definitely fits in that like 10 or 15 minute quick solo filler. The expansion's not so big that you can't fit it inside the main box. So you have this nice small little deck box. It's a lot of fun. I wish they had just printed it inside the Steve Jackson edition. It's like 15 new cards and then these contract tiles. It's literally it. There's no reason they couldn't have put it all together and just been like, it comes with the expansion because we waited 2 years. But hopefully they print it at a later date.
And I agree that Port Royal is something that we definitely... why did Steve Jackson screw up the printing of this game? Why are we not getting an expansion? Why can't we enjoy this game?
Actually, believe it or not, we have not.
I love this game. Have you guys played Port Royal? Oh, just a really quick, it takes 20 minutes, push your luck. Medici, the card game, came out. It's like one of those kind of, I'm going to take a big euro and I'm going to melt it down.
Yeah, we'll have to check
like
it out.
Really fun
you
card
play,
game.
I'll tell you what, I really one of our heavy games. and I'll check out the press your luck 20 minutes.
Yeah, you have your choice, either Haspelnecht or Lignum, and we will definitely check out Port Royal. No, but we are. But to be honest, we are Alexander Feister fans. Yeah. We do love his game. So like we of the ones we've played, we like the most Great Western Trail and Isle of Skye. Yeah. So like we really enjoyed those. So if this is of the same quality, then absolutely, I'm sure we'd like it.
Oh yeah, and if I'm gonna play Ligdom, you guys are gonna
Oh,
play
you know what?
a 18 game Pandemic Legacy.
We will
season
play
2.
that
I am
because
not.
we played Pandemic Legacy season
I'm getting my
1
money's
and we
worth
loved
on
it.
that one.
We did. We did.
Yeah, I think we played that in like 3 nights, so it was fantastic.
Oh yeah, can't wait for number 2. Cool. So the game I'm going to talk about, don't know if you guys have played this, is Planetarium. So this was designed by Stéphane Vachon and published by Game Salute. So I gravitated towards this game. One, it has solo.
Yeah.
And
That sounds
two,
awesome.
That's awesome.
you are building a solar system. Like a solar system. Like I don't need space aliens. I don't need to pick up and deliver stuff from Venus to, Earth Prime or whatever it is. Just I want to make a solar system. So that's what this game does. The board is a galaxy. It depicts a galaxy with 9 concentric circles representing the orbits of the different planets. But dotted along the orbital path are particle tokens depicting water, metal, gas, and rock. And you have 68 of these tokens on the board, so they're all over the place. That's basically the game, is these massive amount of tokens on the board. You also have 4 planets that are floating around, and as players, you're going to be controlling these planets. Only you're not controlling your own planet. What you're doing is you're going to pick one planet that you're going to move, or one particle that you're going to move into a planet. So I kind of like that. I'll get to that in a second. But what you're going to do is you're going to try to move the planets onto a particular particle. So you're going to get, gas, or you're going to get iron or metal or whatever it is. You collect them on your board and you use those resources to cash them in for these evolution cards that you have. So like the evolution cards are like planets, but they're your personal planets, and that's what scores your points. So like if you want to make a planet with like 2 gas, an earth, or a rock and whatever, so you take your turns, you're gathering resources, then you cash them in. So really simple stuff. Eventually the planets, the planet, you're going to make a little tableau. Your thing is going to grow. You're going to score some more points. After a certain point, after a certain number of particles are taken and cashed in, the game is going to kind of speed up, where the particles start to go a little bit faster. So I think that's like super cool as a thematic thing, because I can just imagine, like bloop, 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 bloop,
Yeah.
I imagine it was a Pink Floyd song, the one with the whirlwind. I just get that feeling. It's a board game, but I don't know why this game puts me into that headspace. But I do. So then what you're trying to do is you're trying to come up against this final turn, which is the quote unquote final evolution, where, once the last particle is taken, you then play as many of your cards as you can and just try to make as many of these planets as you can. And the final evolution cards are basically these cards that, depending on where the planets end up on the solar system, depending on how many cards you have in your tableau of what type, then you can start to really score. So the game has a really nice flow to it. Which, by the way, I think I spoiled the lead. I love this game. I really, really do. Love the theme. Like I said, it puts me in that headspace really, really well. I love that you don't have an individual player piece, that you're just, kind of doing your own thing. You have to kind of look at 4 spaces on the board. There's a little bit of take that, because if you notice that other people are making a planet and they need that one rock, you could just yoink, I'm going to take that rock. You're out of luck. You have to really pay attention in order to do that. But when that happens, it's kind of satisfying.
Right.
I can't lie. And the game is so light and fast that it's not bad. Like, you just go to plan B, because you can discard, as an action, you could discard a card and and then pull another card and just kind of change up your strategy that way. So you're never, so even though you can deny people, it's kind of, you can get it back, and you can totally mitigate it. So, so then you're rinse repeating, and, on the face of it, it sounds kind of basic. You move a thing, you get a resource, you collect resource, and you change those resources in for a thing. And, at the heart of it, that's what you're doing. So that doesn't sound good, but there's the way it plays out, the bells and whistles. There's opportunities for combos, because you can play a certain card that gets you a resource that change you into another card. So that's pretty cool. And the fact that you're arcing towards this final evolution phase, where it's just like score, if you did it right. So much of what this game does is really, really fun.
Not so much.
Solo mode, Nah, not as impressed with the solo mode. It's basically like you're rolling a die, or you roll 2 dice, and you activate the planets, and they kind of denies resources depending on what you roll, and you're operating towards a high score. Like, so it's not a fabulous solo. It's only a good. I say it's a good solo because you're still doing the same stuff that you would normally do. So you guys talked in the heavy games episode about sometimes you kind of the solo mode makes you do a lot. Either you're playing a different game or you're playing for the AI, which either way, you're not playing the game that you want to play. At least what this game does, it's a very random, it's kind of taking random resources. It doesn't really put up that much resistance, but at least the planets are moving and you're getting stuff and you're doing the same things. So, I like this solo mode because the game is good. And it doesn't get in the way of the game being good. And so maybe that's kind of a little bit of a low bar, but the game is so good. I love this game.
We will have to check it out.
I mean,
so,
from
have you
the
guys
glowing
played
review you've just
Planetary?
given
I know,
it? I don't think we have a choice now. Is this fairly new though? This came out this year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it came out this year. Not a huge print run.
Yeah,
but I like you with the whales. Like I gravitate towards the unique themes. I have to have.
No, I do
I'm
like
good
some
with
of the new
fantasy.
themes coming out.
If I
This
see
one
another
definitely
Cool.
sounds
We'll have to check it out. We're
very
going to be heading to
unique.
PAX
Good.
in a couple weeks, so we'll have to check it out and see if they have it there.
See if we can get a copy of it. Yeah, for sure.
Or at least play it. Yeah.
Yeah. Go for a games loot board. So that is Planetarium. Okay, so that is 4 games that, again, beyond the hotness, people are always asking, oh, I have this game and this game. What should be my next purchases? Hopefully we gave you a couple of good ideas. So there you go. So we are going to transition now to our discussion topic. And I wanted to take advantage, as I said before, of some guys or a couple who has really kind of, worked really hard, to your guys' credit, and gotten a following. And, now publishers are kind of actively seeking you guys out for video content, for, Kickstarter stuff. Like we had Mind Clash Games on here for Cerebria.
Yeah.
And they ran into a little bit of an issue with their videos, so they contacted you guys to make a how-to play video, and you guys were super cool, put it up before
that was
the
awesome.
Kickstarter ended. So scoring some points.
Definitely a company we want to make happy because we love everything they make.
Yeah, we had we actually picked up Tricerion.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about being attracted to like pretty games and things like that.
Yeah,
it's one of the ones we picked up years ago at Gen Con, maybe two
years ago, yeah.
Something. And played it, loved it, saw Anachrony come onto Kickstarter, backed it, played it, loved it. So Cerebria we were excited about.
Yeah,
so
we
were very happy.
That was good. And they were definitely in a tough jam because a lot of their backers were asking for a video. They were like, this is all great, but where's the video? Is there no video because it's not good or it's not done or there's something wrong? So everybody starts to think dark thoughts when backing, when you got your money out there backing a project. You want to be 100% sure that what you're putting your money on is what you're going to be.
And I think that speaks to kind of in the content creation community, which we're all a part of, the value that there is in folks like us kind of putting out content because it helps people understand what games are about, how games play, and when we don't have content out there, then
you can't really. You're not making an informed decision on where you're putting that money, and Mind Clash games aren't cheap, so you want to be sure.
So that might.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's a relationship that you guys have built, and there's other I know you guys get other Kickstarter projects and other games as well to feature. We get games as well on Game Night. We don't get no Antlab level of games, but we do pretty good. We do pretty good for ourselves. And full disclosure, you mentioned PAX. I will be there too. I'm actually working for Renegade Games at PAX. They are paying for my badge, paying for my hotel. So, and I'm going to have a lot of fun. And I just think they're an awesome game company, which raises the question now, now that I'm working for Renegade Games, what happens to my own objectivity as a reviewer? And what happens to your objectivity as when you guys are reviewing games as well? So I wanted to kind of get your guys' sense because, when you guys do your playthroughs, and if you guys haven't visited Antlab Games, check out their videos. They usually kind of give some final thoughts about games, at the end, so people will fast forward and see what they think. So how does that play? Like when a publisher, especially a publisher like maybe smaller ones that are kind of reaching out to you directly, when they give you games, what does it do
I think,
in terms of your objectivity? Do you feel
what
like
we
you can
tend to
still be
do, and I think a
objective
lot of reviewers do
their thing?
is, we get emails pretty much daily now from different new publishers, existing publishers, or people who are just getting a game out that want to play through one on the channel. And what we do is we probably go back on a third.
I'd say, that's probably healthy.
Yeah, about a third of the games to say, sure, we'll get a video out and we'll post it. But it really comes down to, is it something that we would normally play if somebody wasn't going to give us a free copy of it?
Right. And I was going to actually stop you before we even kind of like promise, we'll get a video out for you. It's, it has to be something that we enjoy playing anyway.
Right.
And then when we get it, if we play it and it's like, this thing's a mess, which doesn't usually happen because we are pretty good about picking carefully.
Yes.
Whose games, we're getting. We have dialogue with the folks that are giving us games and things like that to let them know what we think about it.
Yeah, and I don't think we don't really ever tell them we don't want their games if it's not something we
don't want your game.
Yeah, it's just we haven't had that scenario come up yet because I don't think we've ever said yes to a game that didn't seem like it was fully fleshed out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Because when we get an email, it comes with a lot of information. Here's my game. This is what it's about. Here's a link to something that will help you understand it more. Here's a rule book. And if it's a hot mess, then I may not even answer that email.
If it's something, we've gotten requests before to do like these like kind of adult games.
Yeah, some pretty risque games. I think you've got the wrong channel.
Or like $5.
That.
But we've gotten.
Are you guys doing Kama Sutra on the channel?
Degree, yes.
Or the like party games, like 3-player plus games.
Yeah.
Like we can't even entertain.
Right. A lot of NSFW type games that our channel's clean. We don't curse. We don't do it.
Try not to.
Well, for the most part. Yeah. Well, you use darn pretty much.
Yeah.
As you go. But for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
But anyway, so when it gets to, our end, getting back to, how does this kind of affect our review and all that kind of thing, we never take money for games. We won't do it.
Right.
And we always disclose if the game was given to us, and we usually mention it if it was something that we purchased, or we just don't say anything at all.
If we bought it on our own money, we don't say anything. We just review it. If it was provided to us, I usually almost always put a note on the very beginning of the video that says, the game, copy of game was provided by whatever the publisher was, right?
Yeah.
But as far as does it sway our opinion of a game, I'd say no. I don't think it's ever done that. Like, if they want to send us a game, that's fine. Send me the game. I'll review it. We'll talk about it. We'll put it on the channel, and we'll be honest, right? But again, like we said, we know going into it if it's going to be something we'll enjoy.
Right.
So if it actually showed up and we were like, oh my God, this is absolutely terrible. Mm-hmm. We'll not review it.
And I don't know how everybody else operates, but I think that there's a difference in doing it that way versus, here's our charge for us to review your game and just send us all the games and you're posting all the games and you're getting money for all the games. Then I think you might personally run into more of an ethical dilemma, and we just kind of don't put ourselves in that position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and to be honest, like the cost of a game that's a publisher's going to send me isn't honestly enough to make me sway my opinion to say, oh, I love your game and I think you need to sell 1 million copies of this because you sent me a free copy of it, right? If you sent me the game plus $500,000 with it and said review it, then that's a conflict of interest to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't do it, right? You know what I mean? Like, even if he sent me $100,
let me know when that happens.
Here's a little bit extra. Take care of this for us. No, I'm not going to do that because I'm not here to sway people to buy your game. Well, I'm here to show people what a game is.
Right, exactly. So I'd be interested to hear what your take is, Jason, too. Like, kind of like you said, like working for Renegade at at PAX or something like that, where you really are representing a certain company and what that does.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because like this was developing as we did our rapid fire reviews a couple of episodes ago, and I reviewed Flip Ships and Fortnite, and I gave him lukewarm reviews. It wasn't like I wasn't like blown away by him, but I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to represent this company. I'm going to be like hyping this for 4 days. So it was hard. Like it's not an easy thing. And I think the bigger thing that I struggle with is like, so as a person who's kind of like, you guys are a couple years into what you're doing. We're just getting started. Like this is my first year doing it. And so building those relationships. So like you mentioned the scenario where a publisher sends you something or you request something and it's usually something you like. So everything kind of works out. But then there's, let's say a publisher sends you something or you request something and then the publisher says, okay, here, this is great.
That.
And then they send you a second thing.
You don't see it on our channel.
The second thing is like,
yeah.
We don't.
So that's it. You just like don't do the second or third thing.
Does that hurt your relationship? I mean, publishers probably respect that more. Like when something makes it to our channel, because we don't post everything, I think that they almost get excited about it because they're like, oh my gosh, they're like, oh, it's something you really want to post. Cool.
Right. That we actually enjoyed it enough to put it out there and say, hey, this is how we felt. And because, we're taking a lot of time out of our day to sit down, set up a game, film it, edit it, post it. And that's very time consuming. I'm not going to do that for a game that I feel lukewarm about,
Right.
And
So that whole thing about relationship with publishers, like, because you're really serving two masters, right? You're trying to put stuff out there for the fans, and you want the fans to trust your authenticity, because like there was that whole thing that happened with Undead Viking where people were slamming him for being, you're too positive and you're a shill
on the BGG forums.
Yeah, and it was. And I guess for people who don't know the context, we have a lot of listeners who don't even go on BGG, which God bless you sometime. So Lance, the Undead Viking, is a reviewer, and he's one of the first ones. Like, he's one of the first video reviewers, and he puts out a lot of content. And he tends to like a lot of the games that he puts out. So he kind of got into the weeds, so to speak, that he's a shill. Like, he's getting paid to do this. Everything is positive. You can't trust what he's saying. Meanwhile, he's doing what you guys are doing. Like, if he doesn't like a game, he's not reviewing it. So you don't see it because he doesn't want to put that negativity out there. So people didn't get that, So I think I'm hoping, like, conversation like this, maybe a little bit more light on the fact that, if it's a reviewer that gives nothing but positive reviews,
no, exactly.
It's not
I think
just because
I think a lot of the distrust though also comes from, like, people seem to have a problem with reviewers who get paid to do reviews, in addition to getting a free game, because a lot of reviewers charge. Mm-hmm. That's a fact.
Well, that's actually like the first question that we get from a lot of publishers is, how much do you charge to do a review?
Yeah, and
they're always shocked that we don't charge anything.
We don't charge a penny. I said, just send us a game and we'll review it.
Yeah, if we like it. So.
So what do you think about that? Do you just, like, I know that's a personal decision.
No, not at all. I don't think so. I think that it's, every person is different with regards to how they manage themselves ethically and what they're more comfortable with. And, there are personality types out there that can get paid, the $1,000 or $5,000 to do a review, and they don't care if anybody's feelings get hurt, but we just don't like to put ourselves in that position because it's not something that we want, not only not something we want to deal with personally, but also I think it lends a little more credibility to what we do in a way, maybe. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, we're happy doing what we do without getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean somebody that gets paid to do it is necessarily wrong.
No, and I think if that's what you do for a living, and that's how you're making your living, and, in order to continue to make your living doing that, you need to charge for reviews because you don't have enough time to get through all the people who are asking you to do reviews, then I don't see a problem with that. But I think the key to it is full disclosure.
Yeah, full
And
disclosure.
if you're not fully disclosing that you are getting paid or taking money to do that review, then you're doing a disservice to your viewers.
And think that not to like drag this on and on and on and stuff, but one of the other things that we always we have expectations of our viewers too, right? And our viewers, I think, know this, that we're not here to tell you what games to buy. We're not here to tell you what you should like or what you shouldn't like or anything like that. We're here to give you our opinion. We're here to teach you about what it is we like, so that you can make an informed decision on your own. And we would rather kind of empower people to do that, as opposed to being the ones that are like, yeah, you should definitely go buy this game.
Right.
I mean, if somebody knows that they really like worker placement and really good theme and, pretty contexts and all of that kind of thing, like I do, and they're like, oh, Francis really likes that game, maybe I'll try it out. That's great. But it's not because I'm saying go buy this game. Do you see the difference a little bit? Yeah. Yeah,
that's actually leads into why we changed our whole review structure of our channel. Like we actually had like ratings that we would give our games at the end. Oh, here it gets this. We give a stamp on it. This game is outstanding. It's brilliant. Yeah. It's great. But at that point, people were hanging on to those buzzwords to determine whether or not, is this a great game? Is this good?
It seems so arbitrary.
Yeah. So what we've done?
Like what? I'm like. There's 3 things that a game can be. Like,
it's so outstanding. It's not dazzling.
Like we talked to each other about it. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. I don't want people to get caught up on a review rating. I want people to watch and listen to the review discussion, and then think about what we liked and what we didn't like. And that's now we've changed it to pros and cons at the end. Here's our pros and cons. Make up your mind, because we're not telling you, what the score is on this game. Because a lot of people hang their decision to buy something based on, is it an 80, an 85, or is it
and
a
if 9? It's an 85, are you not going to buy it?
Yeah. If I think it's a 7, you may think it's a 9. You know what I mean? Like, you love Kemet. I hate it.
Yeah.
There's
exactly. Right.
Like if I tell you I hate Kemet and you're not going to go buy it, you may be missing out on a really good game.
Well, and what I would like to know, if you say I hate Kemet, my next question is going to be, well, why?
Yeah.
And that's why, from a value-added standpoint, we decided to move towards what do we like and why, and what don't we like and why. And I think that our viewers can interpret that however they need to in order to make decisions. Sure.
Yeah, so I will argue a little bit of devil's advocate at this point. So, especially like in a sense of, because there's a ton of podcasts out there. I mean, there's more podcasts being edited every day. Podcasts will go for like 5 episodes and drop, or 10 episodes and drop. A YouTube channel will post 2 things and drop. I think there's this desire that people who are content creating want to just do their thing. And getting those free copies is so important. Like I don't know a lot of multimillionaires who decide that this is their hobby. There's a lot of other things you can do if you have a ton of money. So I guess this kind of gravitates towards people who are of limited means. And when you want to start getting those first review copies, building those first relationships is so important. And I could just see a situation where, you want to make them happy. You want to say, you want to maintain that relationship. If you're a fan of a certain company's games, you want to, get them. And even if it isn't like, you're calling a bad game good, or you're calling a good game great, or whatever it is, like there might be that little half point, that kind of thumb on the scale. I think I talked about, like, the Perfect Information podcast had a thing where they looked at, like, they took a study of people who just reviewed games. They bought them, and they reviewed games. They're free, and they found that the difference was like a half point. But that's a real thing, Yeah. Like, some people, it's like, oh, it's a 7. It's okay, a 7.5. Woohoo! Or something like that. So it doesn't have to be like a huge thing, like a huge shift. But I do think that there is an influence, which unfortunately has to be there, right? Because that's how you live. Like, you can't buy all these games. No one's going to listen to your channel if you're just reviewing the games you can afford, or the games at your local store. You have to get that infusion of fresh stuff. Like, for us, our biggest episodes are the hot games. So, like, we did a deep dive on First Martians. We did a deep dive on Seventh Continent. Those are, like, by a lot, our best episodes. And you got to get access to those games, and the way to get access to those games, if you don't have, like, an active, thriving friend group, is to make relationships with these publishers. So I'm not saying that, oh, we're all objectively biased, but I do kind of want to, at least throw a little bit of a wrench into the idea that we can kind of
hit on something
maintain,
really
and that
important
it's easy
when
to maintain objectivity,
you're
if that makes
discussing,
sense.
Needing to get those games because you're starting a channel and it needs to grow and all of this kind of thing. And I think that in our case anyway, this is just us, our intent was never, and still really is never, to be the biggest, best, greatest YouTube channel out there. It really started out with us just putting games on the channel that we had and that we wanted, But if you're somebody that's kind of out there and you want to be like the next big YouTube guy or something, then then that's going to be important to you, which in turn is going to make getting those things from publishers important to you.
Extremely important.
And then it's going to make, making those publishers happy really important to you, because your bottom line is maybe not the money, but it's getting those games so that you can be, the best at what it is you're doing, or at least what you're perceiving to be the best at what you're doing. So I don't know. It's a little devil's advocate back at you, Jason.
Yeah. let me disclose something here. If you probably
Angel's
look
advocate.
back at the videos we've posted since Gen Con, we'll just say that. And we posted a lot of videos
Gen Con this year?
since Gen Con in, was it August?
August, yeah.
We posted a lot of videos since Gen
yeah,
Con, right? And if you exclude anything that we've done for Kickstarter and look at just the games we've played, I'd say more than 80% of it's been purchased with our own money.
I'd say probably more than 80%.
If not more than 80%.
But I have to also disclose that we're in a position where I feel like we're fortunate to do that.
Yeah.
We save a lot in order to do that ourselves. We make decisions in our own life, because who were we having this conversation with at some point about how to afford games and things like that?
It was somebody.
I forget, but
in any case, we don't get as many games as you may think.
Yeah.
Most of what we get free are Kickstarter copies.
Mm-hmm.
The few that we do get a lot of them are ones that we really want, and we ask for it not with the hopes of, just hoping that we'll get it, not guaranteeing that we'll get it. We don't get every game we ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, we don't ask for every game. But there are certain ones out there that we will pitch to publishers, say, hey, and a lot of publishers don't give away free games, to be honest. Some of them make you pay. They give you a discount, but they still make you pay for them. And we're fine with that. Just because we can't get a game for free doesn't mean we're not going to review it. If I want a game that bad, I'm going to go buy it. And I spend a lot of money every year on games. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Which curves your bias probably the other way. So interesting.
Yeah.
It would be another interesting study.
Yeah. I spend too much money on games. We'll put it that way.
I can verify that.
It's honestly, it's a very expensive hobby, but I also,
Join
if
the rest
I
of
get
us.
a game and I like it and I know it's not something that's really in my rotation, I'll trade it. There's a lot of folks, there's a good trading community out there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can cycle in some pretty good games and some pretty new games too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to have this conversation partly because we've seen it a lot on the BGG, and the Facebook had a Board Game Revolution had a thread on it.
Yeah,
and
I know why.
They're going to see me with a Renegade shirt on, and they're going to wonder what the f. And and I want to make sure that just to kind of get my thoughts out there. So I guess to end. Obviously what Ant and Francis are saying are absolutely correct. You have to try to be as objective as possible and fully disclose and be fully transparent, but also while acknowledging people's concerns and saying, hey, what's going on here? And I think the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. So like if you're, if people really look at you and you're consistently giving certain games more, stuff, I think that stuff will come to light at the, eventually. So it's just worth it to, be fully transparent. So, yes, we all get free games. We have relationships with publishers, and we're going to do the best we can. That's the bottom line. So, if you want to hear a little bit more about, the discussions like this, or just like, really thoughtful, insightful game reviews like we did on the Heavy Games episode, or a lot of other stuff, you can follow Anthony not only on his YouTube channel, but he also has
we
a podcast.
we started a podcast
tell the people a little bit about
all
that?
the way back all the way back in January, I think, of this year. Maybe this time last year. I think
Both
we
I
started.
think it was January.
We did about 5 episodes. We were doing about one a week. And then if you anybody follows us personally or kind of knows what's going on, we recently got settled down. We're not like in an apartment, anymore. The house is done and all that. So we picked it back up. So it'll be Wednesday nights. Usually we put it out. So it'll be ready for your Thursday morning commute.
Yeah.
And we talk about things that kind of just can't make the channel. So games we haven't, been able to get to the channel, and
things we play in our own time, things we enjoy, or some random topics about board gaming.
We get so many questions from everybody.
Yeah,
and it's great.
And it's
hard.
don't
always have time to answer them.
And it's really, I don't think it's the right forum to answer them during a game review. Exactly. So it's So this seems to be a good channel and a good outlet for us, and we've got the equipment, so why not use it? And I think I think podcasts are great, especially for those commuting and who don't really listen to music a lot. They would like to listen to podcasts, and there's so many out there, but you can rip through a week's worth of podcasts in like no time. So the more the merrier, I think. So there's no harm in it.
Thanks, Jason.
Oh, really?
Pro tip: 1.5 speed. You gotta listen at 1.5 speed. Oh, it has turned my life around, man. I listen to so much stuff now.
It's on. It's just if you look up Antlab on iTunes.
So it is Antlab podcast.
It'll show up.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you guys for sitting in not only on the episode with Heavy Games, but also co-hosting with me on the show, sharing about games that you have, a little bit under the radar, beyond the hotness game, so to speak. I hope that you guys have gotten a lot of reasons to spend even more money and have gotten a couple laughs hanging out with Anthony and Francis. So thank you so much for spending the time. All right, that is going to do it for another episode of Every Night is Game Night. As usual, you guys can hit us up on Facebook and the Twitter at ENGN_podcast. The Facebook we're linked with BoardGamersAnonymous.com, so you can take a look at that. Website is everynightisgamenight.com. We are all over the place. We'd love to hear you, and we really, really would appreciate if you could rate us on the different platforms, SoundCloud, Google Play, and especially iTunes. The more ratings we get, the more we float to the top of the charts and more people can find the show. So without further ado, this is Jason signing off. We will be back next week with another heaping fresh loaf of solo goodness. So until next time, grab a solo game off the shelf and let's make every night a game night.